So the first event that I attended today at the Labour Party conference was a panel with a few different people from the Labour Party. There was a pollster there. There was John McDonnell, and it was a very, very interesting discussion. And John McDonnell, the former shadow chancellor, had, I think, some really interesting things to say about the previous Labour leadership under Jeremy Corbyn, their attitude towards policy and campaigning and focus groups and things like that, compared to the current leadership of Keir Starmer et al. So take a look and we'll talk about it.
We have much more work about how we shape our narrative. When I was on the GLC, I was responsible for the campaign as well as being the chair of finance and I brought in agencies. I brought in Parliament. We focus groups under Livingston. God knows how I got away with spending money, but we focus groups like Madon, but we never went to the focus groups to say, what do you want us to say to win your vote? We went with a proposal and then talked to them about the argument about how we could convince them. So we shaped our language based upon dialogue. What we built up in the Labour Party is one of the biggest focus groups in the world, which is 500.
So I think that is a fascinating piece of insight there from John McDonnell. So what he's essentially saying is that under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, the Labour leadership were committed to a set of policies that they believed in and thought were right, that they spoke to ordinary people, they looked at the greater economic and social problems that the country was having and realised we need to solve these problems, and this is how we do that. You know, policy X, Y, and Z, whatever. Now, the problem arose when you have to actually communicate those ideas and get the public to vote for them so that you win the election and can implement them. Because you know that's the right thing for working people in the country, to improve living standards, make the country a more equitable place, a more democratic place, etc. So Labour would focus group, they would look at opinion polls and things like that, but then if it was found that a policy wasn't very popular, but Labour knew it was the right thing to do, they believed in it wholeheartedly and it was part of their principles, then they would keep talking and engaging with those people and trying to figure out what the best way to frame that kind of policy was. You know, how should we present this to the public? How best can we persuade these people who don't agree with the policy that it is a good policy? Because we're going to do this, because we believe in it. Now, the current Labour leadership under Keir Starmer has a very different attitude to these things. They are so terrified, it seems to me, of public opinion being against them, that they almost never commit to anything. I think aside from, you know, a few things by Angela Rayner, most people in the current Labour leadership seem to just get wafted around wherever the wind takes them. It's really not good enough. So the current leadership needs to learn a lesson from that. Of course, the Corbyn years were not ones of massive success. You know, the 2017 election, huge gains were made. Labour were way behind the polls, and they, you know, really brought themselves back from the brink. And they had a fantastic campaign and some great policies. But 2019 was a total reversal of that. And I think that was because you know, they were speaking to people in the ways that actually connected with them. They had a coherent vision for what Britain was going to be like. That was not present in 2019. It wasn't really present in 2015, and it wasn't really present in 2010. But guess what? It was in 2005. It was in 1997. The key through line of Labour's electability is not whether it's left, right, or centre-left. Well, left, centre, or centre-left. The actual through line that connects all of Labour's victories and all the times Labour have made gains is when they've presented a coherent vision for the country with policies that people believe in, with arguments that can persuade people who are a bit iffy about those policies. And Labour at the moment really does not have that. Angela Rayner's speech at the beginning of the conference I thought was pretty good, and she even laid out a few policies which I liked a lot. But apart from her, there's very little to go off. It doesn't seem like there are core principles. It just kind of seems like, you know, we don't really want to answer questions because then the public might hate us and the media might say this horrible thing about how we're going to nationalise your mum or whatever. And you cannot have that in a political party, especially not one that claims to be progressive and pro-worker and pro-ordinary people and fighting for marginalised communities and everyone who's been left behind by the Conservative Party. So, yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. I don't agree with everything John McDonnell's ever said or ever done. You know, I've been very critical of him in the past, but I think it was definitely worth listening to that. And it was an interesting panel overall. So, yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. You know, do Labour need to do more focusing on that persuasion, focusing on the framing of arguments, how we can get people back on board? Or do you think that they should be a lot more wary of public opinion? You know, it's certainly a debate worth having. Yeah, so I'd really like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.